Alright everyone, it's time to laugh at Huffington Post again. It's easy to do because most of what they come out with is laughable. This time they really outdid themselves though, because either they don't know how Rotten Tomatoes works or they don't care how Rotten Tomatoes works. They decided to make an article crowing about how Dear White People, which is sort of like the sacred cow series right now of the BLM sort of side of the left, so-called the social justice warriors. They came out to say, oh, it got a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, this is great. That means everyone loves it. The problem is, either they're not aware of this fact, or they just decided to ignore it. But the tomato meter reading that's given on there is only due to the columnist and professional critics audience. That is, that's not the general audience of the TV series that's weighing in on that rating. That's just what paid or more popular critics happen to say about that. Well, wonder why they like it. I wonder why some New York Times columnist is going to write a wonderful review for Dear White People. I wonder why someone from the Huffington Post would write a wonderful, essay about how great it is and how socially groundbreaking the idea of browbeating white people is, or something like that. Meanwhile, let's look at the audience rating for the show. It's 58%. That's a wild deviation. Now, when something is a little testy, especially for the last half decade or so, if something is politicized, there's typically a disconnect between the rating given by the critics and the rating given by the audience. Sometimes one is significantly higher or lower than the other. Sometimes, and this happens with cult classics too. You look at some of the cult classic movies. Critics say, oh, 0 stars, I can't even give this one. It's terrible, it's totally sloppy. You can find people that say The Exorcist is slow-paced and horrible and doesn't stand up to the test of time. And yet then the audience weighs in, they just fucking love it. Or vice versa, the critics say, oh, this is great, this is wonderful, and this is one of those examples. This is it's groundbreaking, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's fun to watch, it's greatly entertaining, great social value. Then the audience weighs in and they say, oh, well, maybe, yeah, okay, maybe it's mediocre at best or something. It's so-so. And that's what's happening with this. Almost half of the people that are rating it apparently did not like the show. And yet, Dear White People gets rave reviews from the critics. There's a big disconnect. I wonder why that could possibly be. Now, Huffington Post and similar groups, they'll say, oh, well, that's because it got brigaded by, right-wing trolls, or something like that. Well, brigading doesn't really get taken into account when there are less than 500 actual audience ratings. Still more than the number of critics that have weighed in, but people who have registered there, they haven't gotten kicked off because they're just going through and trolling and stuff, they appear not to really like the show. Yeah, they didn't really like Dear White People. The average score is less than 60. 60 is sort of the cutoff point between something that's more good and something that's at best mediocre / getting down below 50 is the danger zone of it will be forgotten forever. You think of Ghostbusters reboot or something like that. I don't know if the Huffington Post, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume they made a critical error here. And they don't understand that 100% rating, or 99, it says in their article, oh, it dropped down to 99%. That's just critics. Those are professional individuals that write some column or some blog or something. They happen to be prominent. But those individuals have a vastly different lifestyle, as if you average them together, the amount that they have money-wise, their political composition is presumably a bit different from the average population now, isn't it? So the average audience didn't really like Dear White People. No, in fact, they thought it was rather bland and mediocre. In a way, that's worse than having a 0% rating. At least then there'll be some people who pretend to be hipsters, pretend they really love it, and buy all the merchandise, and it'll be a mini cult classic or something. You'd think of Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows or something, which I unironically enjoyed, and I stick by that, even if the acting is sub-B movie grade. I still liked it, specifically because it was so fucking terrible. Yeah, Huffington Post has outdone themselves. Crowing about the critics' ratings is not a great idea. Because there are a lot of people who they take a look at this and they say, oh, the critics love it. That means it's probably trash because they probably got paid to like the movie or something like that. And they wouldn't be entirely wrong, honestly. Yeah, it's easy to pay off the critics. Oh, here's a week-long vacation if you come and screen this show or this movie, the premiere. And be nice to us. Here, we'll send you to this 5-star hotel for the week on our bill. Yeah, mini bar. Yeah, it's free. You can drink as much as you want. Be drunk when you watch the movie. Please do, because it'll be better. Something like that. Yeah, that's what happens all the time. Those ratings are literally meaningless. It's the audience rating that matters, because those are the people that actually go on to continuously absorb the material. If they're giving it a 58%, that's, it's okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It's barely good. So the Huffington Post kind of misses the mark here. Between the general population and the critic population, there are in fact, more people in the world than there are specifically movie and TV critics in the world. I'm not sure they realize this. They live in an echo chamber, though. They live in a bubble where, like, their consensus reality is objectively right, so I'm not surprised that they would make that mistake. Tomato meter rating, I ignore it completely. If I'm going to look up ratings, it's going to be the audience rating that matters. That's what did people think, average people, when they watched something? Was it great? Was it terrible? Was it somewhere in between? The fact that the critics like it obviously isn't going to salvage this project if half the audience thinks it was a turd. That's not reality. That's about all. Peace out.